In this tutorial, we'll learn how to use SQL package. We'll use SQL package to create data, store data, delete data. And as we do this complex operation, we'll do them using GetX package. GetX package will help us to deal with some of the complex operation and formatting data, and saving and retrieving all will happen through GetX package at the same time. Well, this is the continuation of the previous tutorial. So if you didn't watch previous tutorial, find out the link below in the description section and start watching from there. So let's get started. So the next thing we want to do, we want to handle this image here. Right now, if you come here, we just have an icon, but we don't want the icon. We want to show an image to the user over here. All right. So to do that, we need to change over here. Instead of icon, let me see. So instead of this icon, we'll use an image. Okay. For image section, we'll use a widget which is called sqlflite. And it takes a few parameters. One of the parameters is background image. This is what we would be using. And then we'll use another widget which is called asset image. We'll use this image widget to pass down the image path to the sqlflite, so it will view the image. Okay, now all it does, it takes the path and name of the file, but we don't have this image yet. So what we'll do, we'll go to our pubspec this file, and over here, as you can see, we have this asset property, our asset section. So we'll use this section, and here we'll specify our image name and path like that. Okay, so we'll create a folder called image. So let's go ahead and do it. So here we'll create image folder or images. Be careful that the name should be same as this one. Okay, images. Now, so this is our image. So this is the image we would be using. So make sure that you write the correct folder name, and also take care of the spaces over here. They are very sensitive. Now let's come over here. Now here our image in this images folder. So we'll mention that, and image name is profile.png. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get some dependencies because we changed this file. Okay, now we can run our app. Okay, let's see what's happening here. Okay, yeah, everything is fine. The image showed up. So this is the image that we wanted to show. All right, perfect. So the next thing we want to do, we want to specify color for our theme and this app bar. Okay, right now this app bar change color based on the whole app look, things like that, but we want to get more control on this app bar color. So for that one, we can actually define our app bar color. Now I will define it as a background color for app bar color. You can name it anything you want, it doesn't matter though. So I'll call it over here, I will use white color. Okay, so as we change the themes, so either it would be black color or white color based on light and dark mode. Okay, so that's what we want to do here. Now here we'll use another background color for dark mode. Okay, so we'll use dark gray color. Do remember that dark gray color we already defined over here. Okay, so these are the two colors that we need to have if we want to have a better good looking for the app bar. Now we'll go to our homepage file over here. Now homepage file over here, we have this app bar, and okay, so this is the app bar widget. Okay, over here we can define our background color. Okay, so we'll call background color. Now background color is coming from context.theme. Now of course this is the context of our whole app, so it keep tracks of tons of things. So from this object we can get to our theme object. Okay, the theme that we created earlier and the theme we are going to use now. Now this gets us to find the theme object and related properties. So right now we can access the property like from here. Okay, so let's go ahead and call the property. What's the property? Property is background color. Okay, so now this background color would find the property from here. Okay, so that's the most amazing thing about Flutter and its widget. It's very automated and more like AI based. It keeps track a lot of things for you, so you don't need to hassle things around. All right, so now let's go ahead and change it, run our program, and let's see how it works. Okay, perfect. And now this icon is gone. Okay, well, it's not really gone, it's there, but because we change it to different color, white color, the background color. Remember that earlier it was set to white color, right? Now change it back. Now we need to find a way to deal with this background color over here, sorry, the icon color. So let's come over here. Now do see that, so we need to change the color of this icon over here. And how can we do that? So we can set the color over here, color. Now color should be changed as well based on your theme color, right? So earlier we learned that we can keep track of our theme, that it is a light theme or dark theme based on this variable, which is called is dark mode. And once again, this is coming from our GetX package. Okay, yeah, so this keeps tracks of the theme that you are using currently at this moment. Okay, so what we are using at this moment, the theme mode is light mode, right? So we'll use, sorry, is dark mode. Okay, so we'll use a question mark, iterary question mark, or iterary operator they call it. So based on that one, we get the value because it returns either true or false. Okay, so is dark mode. So right now, of course, it's not dark mode, it will light mode, so this would return false, right? So if it returns true, which means it would be dark mode. If it's a dark mode, then we'll use colors.white, otherwise we'll use colors.black. Okay, yeah, that's what we want to use. So let's go ahead and save it. Okay, now as you see, perfect. So now the color is black color because we are in light mode, so which is falling back to this one. Let's change it. Perfect, now it becomes white, right? But another thing we want to do, as we are changing the theme color, we also want to change this icon. Okay, we don't want the same moon icon all the time, and once again we can use this one. Okay, we'll check if it's whether dark mode. If it's a dark mode, you want to switch back to the light mode, right? So in that case, we would show the icon, sun icon, or if it right now it is in light mode, so that's where we are seeing this moon icon. So here, if it's a dark mode, so we'd fall back to icons dot say sun, I think this one. Okay, otherwise we fall back to this night mode. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it. Okay, now let's change it. Perfect. So now this is the sun, change it back. Now this is the moon. All right, so that's perfect and working as we expected. Now another little strange thing, this elevation, we don't want elevation so high, we want to set it to 0. So what elevation does, elevation gives it's like this shadow, as you can see here, it looks like it's on the surface. Now we will set it to 0. Okay, perfect. Now it's looking much better. Yes. Okay, great. So now we are done with this section and we are happy. Now what we'll do, we'll go ahead and create this section over here. All right, this section over here. So now as you can see, this is we can put the way we can design it in a row section. Okay, this would be the first big row, and within row we'll have column. So column, this one, I mean this would be row, right? Row will have two big section. So this is the first section and this is the second section. So within row we'll have two children. Now within the first section we'll have column section once again, because they would be sitting on the top of each other. So what we'll do, row, first section, second section, and within first section we'll have column section. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it. So we'll collapse our function over here, this one, and this is where from where we want to start. So let's go ahead and first what we'll do here, say row. Okay, and row takes children, we know it. Now the first child, I said this is the column, so let's go ahead and define column over here. Okay, and the second one is not, I mean, it's a different widget anyway, we'll take care of that later. Now once again, column takes care of takes children, so now we'll have two children, this and this, right? Okay, so first one is about date. Okay, so while what kind of data we want to use? Okay, so we can use date time dot now. Okay, well, but this is not a string object, but we want to show it as a string over here, but this is not a string object. So what we need to do, we can wrap it around a text widget. Okay, and then convert it to string. Okay, all right, now let's run our app and see what's happening here. Now this is very weird time. The time is correct in my time zone, this is the correct time. Okay, but this is too long, so this is not the format we want. We want the format to have like month name and date and year. That's all we want. Okay, so now Flutter directly doesn't provide any way to deal with this thing. Of course you can, but that is a lot of hassle. So what we'll do, we'll install package to help us converting this time to the time format we want. Okay, so we'd come over here, and here actually we'll install two packages. First one is Intel L, I think this is the package. So this helps us to take care of the time format, and later on we also need to use another package for font. So we'll use Google Fonts for that, this one. So this is the package we'll use later, but let's install them at the same time, it will save us time. Okay, it's installed. I think we are done with this, and now come back to this section. Okay, so here now I think it's asked us to update our dependencies. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now what we could do, this package, the one we saw early, it has a function or a constructor which is called date format. Okay, well, date format, and let's see, I think we need to import the package, this one. Okay, perfect, make sure the package has been imported. Now you do dot and you'll see it has different things and format. Okay, and like you can just get hour, 24-hour minute, things like that. Okay, but the one we are interested in, this one, so it will show us the format in year, month and date. Okay, that's what we want. Okay, now it takes or it calls another function which is format, this one. Now within this we'll pass our earlier format. So this is the earlier format that we had, but of course we don't need to convert it to string right now. Okay, so it will take care of things automatically for us. Now let's see, let's run it. Okay, so that's what we wanted. Okay, so once again, so this returns more like a string object. So what it does, it formats it to this one and return it as a string. Okay, so that's why we don't need to convert it to string anymore. Okay, perfect, so that's what we wanted. All right, and next we see that we have this word which is called today. All right, so let's go ahead and do it. So we'll pass another object, a text widget, and we'll call it today. And I guess, let's see, that's all. So now let's save it. Okay, now they're a bit weird, so let me put them on the left side. Okay, so now here is the thing that we need to put some padding, this and that, okay, or margin. Now for column you can't really do it directly, so you need to wrap it around a container, because if you wrap it around a container you can apply padding or margin. Okay, so that's what I did, I wrapped it around a container. Now here I'll put margin over here. and we'll do const edge insets only, this one, and we'll do horizontal. We don't need to do this one. We'll do symmetric and horizontal, left and right, and 20. So when you do symmetric horizontal, that means symmetric means the same, so apply same to the left and the right. Why left and right? Because you use horizontal, so this is the horizontal axis. So now do it, but now we want the date and time and this text all align here. How to do that? It's pretty easy. And within column, because this is here we are using column widget. For column widget, the primary section the cross axis is horizontal axis. Okay, for column widget, cross axis is horizontal widget. So here we can change it. So we do cross axis alignment dot start. So we want to start everything from the beginning. Perfect. Okay, now this is so far working, but now as you see, this is too small and tiny, so that's not what we want. So we can change this thing, but we can define this extra style in our theme over here. So over here we'll define a class, and sorry, not a class, we'll define a function, a getter function or a get function. Okay, so this function will return text style, and we'll use the Flutter get keyword. Get keyword means get me something, return me something. Okay, and now here, what is the method or method name you want? So here we'll call it, say, subheading style, this one, and we can return, we can have this what is this, second braces. Of course it's being cranky because you might need to do a return. Okay, so we need to return something. Okay, so let's return. Okay, when you return, it's happy. All right, okay, we need some content over here. Okay, so because you are going to return some, so return style is text style. Let's see, this is like widget or object, I would say. All right, so but here, what are you returning? You also need to specify. So now here we are returning something. This is coming from Google Fonts, and the font I'm going to use, that's called Lato. Sorry, Lato. That's what we are returning, Google Fonts Lato. So over here, this is the Lato font style. Okay, so here now Lato takes a property which is called text style, this one, and within text style we'll return, well, or we'll assign text style. Okay, now this text style widget is coming from Flutter core widget, right? And we already know it, so we can define here font size, say font size 24, and font weight, say font weight dot bold, and the color section will take care a little bit later. Once again, let me tell you, we are using Flutter get keyword. So if you're coming from another programming background, you know, in Java or PHP or C#, they have this keyword called getter and setter. So this is more like that. So it will get you something. Getting something means returning something. So it's more like a get request, but of course it's not a server side. And we are returning Google Fonts.Lato. And what type object is that? This is a text style type. So that's why we have to mention that return type. Okay, and we are returning this section. Now, what is the method name here? This is the method name. All right, so it's more like this. Okay, yeah. Now now we can go ahead and call this one. Do remember, we defined this one in this file. What is the file name? Theme.dart, not within the class itself. So what does it mean? It means this is a public method. Okay, so we can call this one anywhere from our file or from our project. Okay, so now let's go ahead and come over here. So now over here we can define the style. Okay, so we do style and sub let's say subheading, this one. Okay, Let's run it. Okay, perfect. So it become much better and bigger and a different text style, as you can see here. Okay, so now what we'll do, we'll go ahead and copy paste it where it is over here. Okay. All right, now instead of subheading, this time is heading. So we were creating two style objects over here, and we might use, say, for example, 30, and that's all. So now this style would be using for today, this section. Okay. All right, so what we'll do, we'll assign this one. So we'll do heading section or heading style. Okay, now let's save it. Perfect. So it's a little bigger. Now let's go ahead and change it. So as you can see, the color changes automatically, but this color is too dark, and they have the same color, so that's not what we want. I mean, we can style it further. Now over here, once again, we can keep track of the color. Okay, yeah, so we'll define color property. Now once again, we'll do get is dark mode. We need to import the package. Let me import it manually. It will get the correct package get.dart, this one. Okay, perfect. So now if it's dark mode, if it returns dark mode, then we'll use colors.white. If it's not dark mode, then we'll do colors.black. But this is for subheading, this one. Okay, this should be for heading, I guess. So let me put it over here. Okay, and for this one, we want to use a bit of different color, not exactly white and black like that, because we want it to be a little lighter. Okay, so when it's dark mode, we want to use gray color, but not complete gray, a light gray. And when it is in light mode, we just want to use gray color. Okay, that's all we want. Now let's go ahead and run it. Okay, perfect. Now it's already looking much better. Okay, perfect. We are good. Yeah, right, perfect. Okay, no, that worked so far with us. Now we want to create this button over here. Now there will be several buttons in our application. So what we'll do, we'll go ahead and create a new folder within UI, and we'll call it widgets. And now over here, we'll create a file and we'll call it button.dart. Okay, perfect. Now here we'll create first our class name and file. Let's do st. Now we'll want to use stateless widget, and the name of the class is my button. And now over here, I guess we need to import some of the libraries. Okay, perfect. We are good to go. Okay, now we want to create a clickable button over here. Now clickable button could be done using gesture detector or inkwell. So in our case, we'll use gesture detector, this one, and it takes few properties. First one is on tap property, and we'll keep it null for right now. And then it also takes child. Okay, yeah, all right. Okay, perfect. Now we want to also have well, for child, we want to return something with background color and text. Okay, so that's why we'll wrap it around within a container, the child section. Okay, and now the container will have width and height. So we'll do width first, with 80, and say height 60. I think 100 is better. And then it will have background color. It will have decoration. We are going to use decoration because we will have this border, and we'll use box decoration widget, and it takes border radius. So we do border radius dot circular 20. Okay, and we also mentioned color, and we are using primary color. So what is the primary color? This blue is the primary color, and which we already defined in our theme file over here. As you can see, primary color is a bluish color, this one. Okay, now come back to this one. And we also want to show the text over here. Okay, now text would be passing down from the place where we call this button. Okay, all right, now from where we call this, we'll pass down two objects. One is onTap function, another is the label. Label means the string. Okay, so that's what we want to pass down. So we'll declare over here two objects. So we do final string label and final function onTap. Okay, now of course we need to call them over here, this dot label and this dot onTap. You're perfect. Now it might ask you to use required keyword based on your version. In older versions you might not need this, but newer version you might need this. Okay, yeah. Now this is the onTap function, clickable function that would be passed down from the caller. So we will use it here. Okay, so onTap. Now it's being cranky. Once again, this is the SDK version problem. So in most cases this should be enough, and if it's not enough, in your case you could use this one. Okay, it would solve the error. Okay, so it's more like that it's not sure that it will get this function or not. If it doesn't get, just keep it null, but also take care of the null safety thing. I mean, don't crush the app. I think that's what it means. Anyway, so you can either remove this if it works with you. If it doesn't, then just use like this. Okay, perfect. So now we are almost done. Now this label would be passed down, right? So we want this label would be string. So we want to use it as a child within the container. So we do text and we do label. Okay, and we'll use style over here. Text style. We do color. So colors dot white. Okay, perfect. Now I guess we need to import a library. Okay, the error should be gone. So we are done with this button file. So now we can go ahead and call this. So call it from where? Call it from here. Okay, so you want to have this button. Let's use our button over here. So remember our button is this one, and the class name is my button. Okay, so we'll just call my button, and this one, it takes two properties as we defined earlier, this one and this one. So the first one plus add task, and the second one, for now we are not passing anything, we're just passing null. We'll use it later. Okay, so go ahead and run it, and we should be able to see it, but now they are too close to each other. Let's see, yes, over here. So this row, now row has a property which is called main axis alignment. That's what we are going to use. In our case, this is the row, and main axis is also the horizontal axis, so we can push down to the left side and the right side. Okay, yeah, so we could do main axis alignment, main axis alignment dot space between. So when you use this property, it push everything to the left and right side. Let's run it. Okay, that's okay. It created some space, but now it's too much to the right side. That's because here I think we earlier used this container, so I think we don't need this one. So just get rid of this. Okay, now it looks better, but now again too much to the left and right. So to get rid of this problem, what we could do, we can wrap this row widget around the container and then apply padding or margin. Okay, I'll select this. I'm on Mac, so I'll do option enter. If you're on Windows, you could do alter enter. Okay, now wrap it around the container. It will do it automatically for you, as you can see. Now here we'll apply margin. So we do const edge only. We do say left 20, right 20. Okay, we need a comma over here. Okay, perfect. Now the top section, we can also take care of that. We can apply a bit of margin. So it's a top, say 10. Perfect. Now it's working as we expected, right? Okay, perfect. So what we'll do, we'll just close this container over here. And now another thing though, now there would be a lot of code here, so we don't want to run this code in our main section. Okay, we don't want to write it over here. So what we can do, we can write another new function. We'll call it addtaskbar, and over here we'll return everything in this code. Okay, so just cut all of this and then return container. Okay, yeah, and of course we need the semicolon because it's a return statement. And over here we can call addtaskbar. Perfect. So this way our code is more organized and readable. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it, make sure everything is fine. Okay, perfect, everything is working correctly. Now the button, this width we can change it to 120. This way it would look better, good looking. Yes, it's looking better. Okay, so next we'll see how to show these dates here and scroll them. Okay, and to do that we can first install a package. We'll do, it's called what is it, date picker timeline, I guess. Date picker or date picker timeline. This is the widget we are going to use. Do see that I'm using all the latest version over here, and if your SDK version is same as mine, you shouldn't have any problem because I'm using all the latest version of the plugins. Anyway, let's go ahead. Now here, once again, here first we'll wrap this section around the container. Okay, that is asking you to get dependencies. Okay, so let's define a container over here. Okay, and container text child, and within child we'll have another container, or we don't need a container here. What we could do, we can just call date picker, this one. Okay, yes, all right, let's see if we imported the package. I think everything imported automatically, but now it's being cranky because it has some of the properties that we can use. So let's go ahead and do it. Now the first one, as you can see, it takes a date time object, which refers to start time, okay, or start date. So this is the first property we need to use. So what we could do, we can just call date time dot now. So this will show us the current date, as we saw early in the beginning of this tutorial. Okay, so next we can define height. So we define height 100. So this height is, I guess, this height. All right, and then we could define width, say 80, like that. Okay, but I think it's including unselected area. Okay, and next it takes a lot of other properties. We'll say initial selection date. This is the current date, the date today. So once again we can use this one, time dot now, and then selection color when you select it. So when you select something, select date, we'll use a primary color, this color, or this color when you select on a date. And next we'll use let's see, what we could use. We could use selected text color, because this is the background color. Selection color is more like the background color. So selected text color, and in our case we'll use colors dot white. White would be better. Okay, so these are the basic settings that we can use. Now look at some other properties. So here we have this month, day, and date style. So these all takes text style object, right? Yeah, so these are the most important things we need to use to show the month, date, and day. Okay, that's what we want to do. All right, now let's go ahead and see. First we'll use date style, text style, this one. Okay, now here what we could do, we can just return style for our date. So text style. Now we could do, say for example, font size 20, font weight font weight dot, we'll use 600, this one, and colors dot gray. All right, perfect. Now let's go ahead and run it and see what do we see here. Okay, wow, that's amazing. So it's already showed up and we can scroll through them. Okay, and this is the correct date and the current date. Of course, you can select the second one like this. Okay, now a few things that we can take care. First, it's too close to the border. Okay, so we can assign some margin over here. All right, top margin and bottom margin. So we'll do margin const edge only, say top say top 20. Let's see. Okay, it looks much better now. All right, and what else we could do? Try to use left and see. Perfect. I think that's good. And I don't think we need any margin over here. So this is aligning with our style over here. Okay, so for that's working perfectly. So now this individual style over here. Okay, but once again here I'm going to use Google Lato font, which we saw early. This one, this font over here. Okay, well, we can just directly cut this thing and wrap it around Google Fonts Lato, and we should be good to go. Fonts.lato, and it takes a property, text style property, and you just copy paste what we have here, and perfect. Now let's save it. Hopefully we'll see a change in the text. Let's run it. Okay, yeah, I guess it changed a little bit. And now over here, so this is the date text style, so we can copy paste this, okay, to save our time. So we'll copy it 2 times. Now instead of date, the next one is day. Okay, and I think we can definitely take care of the font size. So the second one, say 16, and the last one, so this instead of date, once again I think we can use month. Okay, now let's run it one more time. Yes, perfect. But now the font size is too big, right? So for month we don't want so big. Say for example use 14. Okay, I think, well, for me it looks better. Okay, from month date like that. Okay, so I'm happy with this result for now, and it takes another property which is called on change. So that's what we're gonna use. Okay, on date change, and it takes a parameter date, the date you select. Okay, once user selected it, we want to save it to a variable. So let's go ahead and declare the variable. So we'll declare the variable over here. We'll do date time selected date. Okay, like this. Now it's being cranky over here. So, well, now we can actually initialize it. How do you initialize it? We can pass it date time dot now. Okay, yeah, like that. Okay, so for now let's go ahead and save it like this, and we'll see what happens. So now let's go ahead and run it. Okay, everything is okay, and over here selected date equal date. Okay, now let's go ahead and run it one more time. Okay, perfect, everything is working. Okay, now next we'll see how to click on this button. Once we click on this button, we want to go to a new page and create a form and submit this form. So that's the most amazing part of this tutorial. Go ahead and create this, create a new page from this button. We can organize our code. Look at our code over here. So we can move to a new private function. So we'll call it addtaskbar, and over here we'll return the container. So what we'll do, just copy paste this one, cut and copy, and I think we're good. Now just let's call it here add date bar, and we should be good to go. Now let's run it, make sure everything is fine. Okay, yeah, everything is fine. Now over here you can create a new page. We'll call this page addtaskbar.dart. okay, and over here we'll create a stateful file and we'll call it addtaskpage. Now look at a design like this one. So we want to have this app bar. So instead of returning a container, we'll return a scaffold over here. Okay, and I think we need to import some of the libraries. Okay, so now here we'll define app bar. Okay, app bar, and it will have body, and body is container. Now regarding this app bar, we have already done the heavy lifting over here, so we'll copy paste this section and put it here within our build function. I mean, not within the build function, sorry, within this page. So over here, okay, so some of the things that we can take care, like these things, we don't need this because we don't want to switch the theme over here. And we can also import the get package get, this one. And now here it's not recognizing the context, so let's pass it from here. But first let us call this from here. So you're calling it from here and passing the context. All right, and now here let's call it build context. Okay, perfect. So now this is working, but let's verify it. So come to our home page, and home page here, over here, this add I guess add taskbar. Over here we have a button, remember that this is the button. Over here we want to come over here once we click on the button. Now here once again we are using get package get to 2. So Flutter GetX tutorial, check it out if you don't know how it works. Now here we'll call add task page. With GetX package it becomes much easier. Let's import the package. Yes, so you can just call get to a page where you want to go and call that page and you should be good to go. All right, yeah. Now let's launch our app and let's see what's happening here. Make sure that no error. Yeah, no error. Okay, now let's click on this button. Yes, we come to a new page. Perfect, it's working, but definitely we don't want this icon. So let's come here and take care of this icon thing. We don't need any of this. So here we'll use icons dot back arrow arrow back iOS, this one, and perfect. Now of course we can't go back, but we can go back easily. Once again we are using Flutter GetX, so get.back. You know that if you use Flutter GetX package for navigation, you just simply call to go back, you can just call get.back, and to come to a new page you can just simply use get.to and name of the page. Okay, all right, now let's run it one more time and let's see what's happening. Yes, we come over here, and over here is the background color, context dot theme dot background color. Let's run it. So now the background color is same as the app bar color. Okay, perfect. Now we also need to verify how it works within our dark theme mode. Okay, now let's come over here. Yes, perfect. Okay, now we can go back, we can change it. Yeah, perfect. So this thing is working pretty good right now. So let's see. Yeah, So now what do we want? We want this body section. Okay, now let's look at the design. So we want this text and this input field. Okay, all right, to do that, now here we have to have first, definitely these are all column layout, right? These are all column layout, but within each column there are rows. Some of the rows, they have row layout like this, and this one, and this one. Anyway, so let's go ahead. So over here we will do child, we'll do column, okay, and column text children. But this page, I want it to be scrollable. When you type in, I want the page to go up, the keyboard shows up like that. Okay, so that's why we can wrap it around another widget, and we can call it single, I guess, single child scroll view, this one. Okay, so it would help you to scroll. Okay, all right, and another thing, you see that there is left and right padding like that, so we want to use that one for our app. Okay, yeah, so for the content that would come down later, so we can design it now. Say padding, add insets, padding const edge inserts only, say left 20, right 20, and we are good to go. All right, now first we want to add a text here, which will say add text. So we do add tasks. Okay, now here we want to use the style we created early in our theme folder, like this one. So here we'll use a heading style. Okay, so now just call style and heading style, sorry, heading style. Let's go ahead and save it. Perfect. So it's already working because this is the one we created early, right? Now that's done. Next we want, okay, now we'll create this text input field, this one. Okay, now before we go ahead and do it, let's understand how it's going to work. So we'll create a separate class, a reusable class for text input field. So that class will be responsible for showing the title, the text box, as well as the hint, as well as when you type things in. So now if you take a look, you understand that this title and this text box, I mean this text and the text box, they're laid out in a column. So definitely our new file will have a column section where we laid out things like this. Well, as I said, that this would be a reusable file, so it would be reusable for all of these things over here. Okay, so some of them just as text field where you can type in, some of them not really type, you can only choose. Okay, so in general, from where we call this class, the class we are going to create, it will have at least 4 parameters. So like the title, hint, and the text controller, as well as widget. So this would be passed down as widget. Okay, this kind of things. So we need those things. Okay, so first what we'll do, we'll go ahead and create a widget, reusable widget, and we'll call it input field.dart. All right, so first, to work with this date and this input box, here we need to declare a date object in our add taskbar over here. So let's come over here, and at the top over here, let's declare a date object. Okay, but before we go ahead and do that, we need to do one more important thing, because in this file we are going to deal with a lot of stateful states, or like we would be using setState function. So we need to transform this stateless widget into a stateful widget. How to do that? So if you're on Mac, so just select this and hit Option Enter, like Option Enter, as you see. So convert to stateful widget. So if you are on VS Code, you need to do Command dot, then you can do it. If you are on Windows, then you need to do Alter Enter. That's for Android Studio. And if you are on Windows VS Code, you need to do Alter dot. Okay, hopefully you could do it. So here I will do it to convert it to stateful widget, and it's done. Okay, now as it's done, over here I'll declare a variable here, datetime object. So we'll call it selected date. Okay, and over here we'll just pick up the date now. So date time now. So this is the default date, today's date. All right, so that's what we have now, selected date. Now we can use it. Okay, so where to use it? So we'd be using it over here. So we're going to create our third input field. So we'll do my input field. Okay, now over here, title. So definitely the title is date, and hit. Now hint, we want to pass the date, but we don't want to hard code it. Okay, that's not what we want. We want a dynamic date. So every time or every other day user opens the app, they see dynamic date. And how to do that? So we already have this selected date object. Okay, all right, this one. But now the problem with this is that it has a different format. Okay, and here we are going to use a string, as you can see that. So it's not compatible. So what we could do, first we could use another function which is called date format dot. Now this one has different type of format that we can use. Let's see, dot YMD. So you want year, month, and day, just like this over here, and then on that we can call format function, and format takes a string, and not really, sorry. So format takes a datetime object, which we already have, this one, and what it returns, when it returns a string. Okay, so with this we are good. All right, okay, so now what we can do, we can go ahead and run our app, definitely, and we'll see that it shows the date. So let's go ahead and click over here. All right, so this is the current date, right? Yes, but of course right now this is not really clickable, so you want to over here we want to enter something. All right, now another thing, let's see, you can write over here. So you don't want to write things, right? So we need to shut down this feature of writing. How to do that? Let's go ahead to our input field. Okay, now over here well, we'll send a widget from here. Do remember that we'll send a widget. So that widget would be like this one. Okay, so what we could do here, so we'll check if there is a widget or not. Okay, if there is a widget, then there is this feature which is called so there is this feature which is called read only feature. Okay, so if there is a widget coming from our file from here, then we want to just do read only. Okay, and clickable but not typable. All right, so that's what we want to do. So we can check here. So widget over here, if it's null, then read only is false. That means that we can type here. If it's not null, then read only is true. Okay, so this is what we want to do. So we'll save it, but of course here we are not passing a widget yet. So let's go ahead and pass a widget. Do remember that this input field also takes a widget, right? So now we'd go ahead and pass a widget over here. So let's go ahead and do it. Widget. Now what widget we want to pass here? We want to pass a button widget, okay? Icon button widget. So we'd pass here icon button. All right. Okay. Now this icon button has some properties that we need to use. So this onPressed property is mandatory, which you must pass, and as well as we can also pass a icon over here. Okay. Now icon we would use icons dot calendar outline today, this one, and we should be good to go. All right. So now let's save it. Okay. Now we don't see anything yet because we are passing the widget from here, but we are not really drawing it over here. So now do remember that this is, earlier we said that this expanded widget takes the whole object over here in the text box. But if, because this is in a row, right? So right now there is only one object, which is an expanded widget. But if we have more, we can put that. So what is the more widget, or what is the other extra widget? That's the widget that we are passing over here, okay? So we need to check on that one. So here we could do a check. So we could do widget. If it's null, it means we are not passing anything. In that case, we'll just show empty container, which is just a container, but nothing contains. But if we pass something, it means in that case it is not null. So we'll use container, and in that container we'll use the child. What is the child? The child we send, and in our case the child is the widget. Okay, so that's what we want to do. So let's go ahead and save it, and now as you see it's already here. All right, so it looks like yes, it's working. So now let's see if we can click on this thing. Okay, of course we can't click on this thing. The reason is let's come over here. Over here we don't have anything to click. So okay, now let's save it and let's try to click. Okay, so it means it's working. But do remember, just now we converted our stateless widget to stateful widget. Sometimes it might not work until you reboot your machine. So for me it's working, but sometimes it doesn't work when you convert stateless widget to stateful widget. In that case you have to reboot your whole computer and then it works. Okay, so now over here when user clicks on this button, we want to show something to the user. Okay, yeah. Before we go ahead and show it, I think we can take care of this color because right now it's too dark. We don't want it, so we can set up the color here. So we do colors.gray, and let's say yeah, it's more like that we want. Okay, perfect. So now over here, once the user click on this button, we want to trigger an event. Okay, we want to trigger an event and we want to show a calendar. All right, so now first let's go ahead and create this calendar. Okay, over here we'll create a function. That function will show us the calendar when user clicks on this. Okay, so first we need to create a function name. We'll call it get date from user. Okay, now here we'll create a date time object because that's what we want to return when someone clicks on this, and we'll call it picker date. Now the function we want to use is called show date picker, this one, and as you can see it has some default parameters that we need to use. All right, okay, so these are the parameters we need to use first. All right, and now this has something to do with a type of feature can't be assigned to a variable, just date time. What it's telling you, so it's future object show date picker. It returns future. It returns future means you need to wait sometime. So that's why we need to use the keyword await. All right, and as well as over here, because it returns something in future, but it also may return nothing. So that's why we need to use this question mark over here. Okay, and now here we need to add this modifier. I think we all know it. Okay, now here the initial date. Initial date is the date beginning date. You can understand it like this. Okay, so we do date time dot now, so we know that this shows the date of current day. And now there is a first date and the last date. Now the first date is the first time in the calendar when you click on this, so we'll show it soon. So we'll do date time, say 2015. I'll explain what it means. And now here date time, say 2021. All right, now let's go ahead and call this function. So we'll just go ahead and call this function, and call from where? Call from over here. All right, okay, so let's refresh it and let us click on this. Now here we'll have an error, so let's go ahead and check on the error. It says that initial date, this one must be on or before this. Okay, so now, so what is the last date here? So this is the last date, and that here it takes the 1st of January, even though we just write 21, but it counted as last date. Okay, now initial date, but now it's 0921 if you're watching right now. If you watch in future, but of course that's a different time for you, but this time is bigger than this time, which can't be. So your last date must be bigger than this initial date. So what we could do, we could do 21. All right, so now it might work. Let's go ahead and save it, click on this. All right, now it showed up, right? Yeah, working. And what is this? So this is the date, like here you see the initial date. Okay, this is the initial date, but do remember this last date has nothing to do with this one. It just a range to confirm whether these 3 dates are all logical. Okay, like that. But it has nothing to do with the last year over here. Okay, so do remember that. Okay, so anyway, so once the user click on say certain year and date, so we would be able to pick that date. Okay, and once we do that, it would be saved over here. All right, at the same time we can do if condition. We'll say if picker date not null, if picker date not null, so we want to save it to our selected date object. Okay, we do picker date. Else we'll say, okay, but of course we need to, now here one thing is that the selected date we are using over here, so as a hint style or within the hint. So once user select over here and click OK, we want to redraw the time over here in this place, so we need to wrap it around within set state function. Okay, so we'll call set state and just put it there. All right, okay, now let's save it and let's do OK. All right, let's click on this one more time, say we choose 24 and then select OK. Now we see 24 here, right? So it means this section is working pretty well and we are happy with that. But another thing, let's see what happens if we print this date. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it. So let's run it from the beginning, create a new task and click on this and click over here and say OK. Now as you see, it returns a long string. Anyway, so in future we'll see how to process this thing. Okay, next we'll see how to realize these 2 sections. Okay, well, to realize these 2 sections, the basic work has been already done, and what we could do, we can come here and just try using this widgets, the custom widget we built. But as you see, these are in a row. Okay, these 2 sections are in a row, so definitely we need a row section, and within it we'll have children. Okay, so now once again, so this 2 will be wrapped inside expanded widget, then we'll create our sized box, so there is a distance over here. So as a children, first we'll here use expanded widget, and expanded widget text child. Okay, inside the child we'll use my input field. Okay, now my input field, it takes few parameters. So first one is a title. So we'll say start date, and we'll also use a hint. So what is a hint? Well, hint is a default date that we want to use here, so user wants to select. Okay, so for that one we need to declare a variable, so up there, which I already did that, but let me remove it so I can explain to it what's happening here. So what I'll do, so let's go ahead and declare it as a string, and I would say start time, and we could do now date format. Okay, but this time we wanted the time to be showed in like this format. Okay, so over here actually it takes parameters like a string. Okay, so we can pass the format within it. So we would do say HHM, and this A means I think hour, like PM and AM, like that. And then we can format what? Format this time, the current time. So that's what we'll put here, and make sure that it converted to string. All right, okay, so this one, remember, returns long string like this. Now within this one, using this kind of format, hour and minute, we are getting rid of this year, so we just want the last moment or last part, but using PM and AM format like that. Okay, so that's what we want. So now here as a hint we can use start time. Okay, all right, and as you can see here we can also pass a widget. So what widget will pass? We can pass an icon widget over here. So do widget icon button like this. Okay, well now here of course it takes on pressed, and as well as an icon over here. Okay, all right, icons dot, we'll use access timer. It's not popping up yet, like this one. Yes, right. And color, we do colors dot gray. All right, well now this two sections, so we can copy paste. Of course we can do that. Now let's save it, run it, and run our app. So it's like this, but we want to create a white distance here, so we'll create a sized box here, sized box with say 12. All right, okay, perfect. Now of course we need to change a bit of the stuff over here. Instead of start date we'll use end date, and instead of start time we'll use end time. If you don't know where is end time, actually end time we already defined, but this is hard coded. Start time should be more user friendly. End time could be actually anything we don't know, so that's why I hard coded it. So now let's save it and we'll see the new result over here. All right, fine. Okay, so far everything is okay, but now we want to click on this and show a time picker. Earlier we did with date picker, but now we want to do with time picker. Okay, so once again we'll declare a function over here and we'll call it get user time. Okay, or get time from user, like that. So get time from user, that's what we want. Okay, now at the beginning here we also want to get the time from the user, like the user selected. Now that would be, we'll get that time from show time picker, this one. Okay, but if you see, it returns something as the future. Okay, it returns something like future. Okay, anyway, so we'll save it in a variable called picked time. Okay, yeah, so like that. But it's better if we can move this logic actually to another function, so we become very clear what we are doing. So do show time picker. Over here we can put this one, and like this we can just return it. Okay, now here we'll call this function from here, so show time picker. So we need to, if we want to return, we can use semicolon. But now here what it does, now if you see show time picker, once again it takes time of day, and the property name is initial time, so we can use time of day. So we can just simply call time of day. And now if you look at this function time of day, it takes few parameters, but well, now here it says hour. Actually it takes more than that, not only just hour, it also takes minute. Okay, all right, so for now say minutes at 10 and hours at 9, it doesn't matter. Okay, and show time picker might have another property which is useful, the initial entry mode, this one. Okay, initial entry mode equal, let's see, what's the type? The type is time picker entry mode. So time picker entry mode dot input. Okay, because we want to type in something, input something, so that's why we need to use input. So now, so that's what it is returning here over here. Now when it returns something, we should save it in a variable. Okay, we'll call it var picked time. Okay, so now it returns. So once user clicks on this, it will return time in an hour, or the other way to say, it will show the time in hour and minute, like this. Okay, for now. Okay, so first what we'll do, we'll check, but before we go ahead and check, actually whatever it returns, as you can see, it returns things like future, and the type is time of day, which is no way a string. But to show something on this screen, we need to have a string format. Okay, so whatever is returned here, so we need to convert it to a string. Okay, so we'll declare a variable string, and we'll call it formatted time. Now the variable picked time dot format, because it returns like date time like object, pretty much like that, but not exactly the same though. It's a time of day, but I think they're pretty close. Okay, now format. Now to change this time to string format, all you need to do, pass the context, and you should be good to go. All right, okay, now we do few checks on this. First, it's the if pick time equal null, we'll print something on the console. We'll say time cancelled. Okay, now else if, we'll do something, else if we'll do something else. Now we have two else if. Now here, as you see, we have start time and end times, but we are using the same function, but we need to keep the track of their status, so we can pass a boolean over here. Okay, so over here we would say bool is start time, so we are checking if it's a start time or not. Let's see, let's ask you to add a required, but again, in older version you might not need this. Okay, all right, so if start time is a true, which means the first one, of course we'll pass it from here, don't worry. Okay, so is start time true, so whatever is returned from here, if start time equal true, let's see, is start. Okay, Okay, if start time equal 2, then we'll save it in a variable start time, which we declared early. Okay, formatted time. Once again, to help you make sure what is this, so this is the one that we are using over here in the hint. Okay, as you see, so that's for end time and this is for start time. Okay, and we declared them at the top at the early beginning. Okay, so you're gonna change and show the selected time, and else if is start time false, then we'll put the selected time to end time. Okay, so in our case formatted time is the selected time. Okay, hopefully it makes sense. All right, so now we need to call this function, so let's go ahead and call it. So over here start date, over here we'll call it from here, and we'll pass here is a start time true. Okay, and we'll just copy this one and put it right here for end time. Okay, for end time it is false. This way we can differentiate when user clicked, whether clicked on the start time or end time using this boolean. Okay, hopefully it makes sense. All right, so now let's see, go ahead, save it. Let's see if we can see something or not. So now once we click on this one, well, as you see, we see the time. So this is the time that we wrote over here. Okay, so it means this section is working. Of course we have a little error, we'll take care of that later. Okay, now let's check on this one again. So it means the time is working. Okay, so now a few of the things that like here, so we'll take care of that later. Now of course we want a dynamic time. Do remember that at the beginning we have the start time over here, the current time, but we just take the hour and minute. So we want to show this one over here. All right, that's what we want to show over here. So how to do that? So that's in a string format, but this takes integer. Well, as if there is integer here, we need to convert that string format or string object to integer. Okay, now do remember this variable or object start time, when it returns something like this. Say it returns the time maybe like this format. Okay, so now this is a string format, so we need to parse it into integer. To parse a string format to integer, simply we can call int parse like this. Okay, so here we'll pass our start time object, start time, and now how to parse it? Now we just want to parse this section and we don't want to deal with that one. So first we'll split this string based on this semicolon, okay, or this double colon, I don't know what is that. Anyway, so we'll split it. Okay, so now split based on this, and after splitting we'll have this section and this section. So for our, so this is the first section, right, or the first index. So what is the first index? That is index 0. Okay, and we are good to go. Now how about this one? Here we can do almost the same thing but one step further. So we take start time and then we split it. Okay, and we split it based on this column, but this time we take the second index, which is index 1. Okay, so here we'll have this one, but now we don't want a because we will have an error. So now we can also one more time can split it. So split it based on space. So split it based on this space here. Okay, based on this space, and after splitting it we take the first one. So this is the first index. All right, okay, and I think we should be good. We should be good to go. Now let's run it and see what happens. Click over here, and now over here, as you see here, it says that it doesn't have any instance like this, and instance of future. Okay, this object, which is future type, which means it will return something later. Okay, now it's happening over here actually. but if you hover over on it, it says the same thing. It is the future type. So once a function returns future, before that actually you need to use await. So now here we use await, and as you are using await, we can also use async. We need to use async over here, and hopefully with this the error should be gone. Okay, let's restart it. Let's see what happens. Okay, now let's click on this, and this time I guess no error. Yeah, everything's working fine, and we can change the time to 50 and say instead of AM we do PM. All right, now definitely it's not working because here we are not triggering set state, so we need to change this one inside set state. Okay, so we do set state and put it there. Same for this one, set state, same for this one. All right, now let's save it one more time. Let's click on this, and instead of 50 we do 55, and we do PM, and maybe we can do 9. All right, okay, perfect. So the time is saved there. Now let's come over here, say 24. Yes, that's working. Now let's come over here. Well, now here we can change to 10 and 55. Let's see. Okay, so times are working. Now text your title, hi there, you are learning Flutter, like that. Okay, so so far everything is working fine. This section is also working fine, so we are pretty happy with this for now. And next we'll see how to use these two sections, and these two sections should be pretty easy. Well, to work with this remind and its list, first we need to declare a variable and a list as well. So here let's come over here, and we'll define, first declare int variable. Okay, so we have this list now. So once the user create on this arrow, they'll see this drop down list. Okay, and this is the default one, like as you see over here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and work over here. Okay, as you can see that here we can pass our my input field. Okay, and at the same time we'll pass a widget within it. Okay, now here the title is remind. Now what is the hint? Okay, now hint is this selected remind list, selected remind, this one. Okay, now we also want to add 5 minutes early. So how can you do that? So we can wrap it within double quotation. All right, and over here, because this is our variable, so here we can put a $sign, and then we are good to go. And now here we can do 5 minutes early, like that. Okay, yeah. And of course let's see what else here. I guess we need a comma, otherwise we'll get an error. Okay, now the last part is the widget part, because this is a widget, right? So we'll pass widget over here. Now here, this widget, we want to pass a drop down menu icon here. Okay, now the icon itself would be in the drop down menu. So here we'll pass drop down menu, actually drop down button. So button will have this icon. Okay, all right. Now here if you hover over on it, so it has some record things that we need to do, but you'll see that here what do we need to do? So underline icon, and drop down, and what else? So let's see, and this one. So this is the most important one, because this is the list, will show them anyway. So first here we'll do icon. So icon, so we do keyboard arrow down, this one, and we'll do color now. So colors.gray. All right. Okay, now the error will be gone very soon, don't worry. And here we do say this icon size, say 32, and we do elevation, say 4, so it looks a little obvious. And then we can also use a style, but this style subtitle style, this one which we defined long ago in our theme file. Okay, yes. And what else we can also do? Okay, now here, to get rid of this error, we can first realize this item. Okay, otherwise we won't be able to execute our function. So here we could do items. Okay, now it takes, if you hover over on it, like it takes a list, as you can see here. And the list, the first type is, it has to be drop down menu, and within drop down menu, the items inside the drop down menu items, they could be dynamic. It means they could be string, they could be integer, or any type, even object. Okay, it doesn't matter. So those are the things, it has to be there. Okay, now let's go ahead and first call our list. So what is our list? Our list is remind list. Okay, now we'll map through them. Okay, now as we map through them here, we can use I think we don't need to use it like this though. Let's see. Okay, so we need to use like drop down menu icon like this. Okay, now here in our case, we must return a string. Okay, because once the user click on this thing, when it shows, so that shows as a string. So that's why we are looping through this drop down list. Okay, and once we return, we have to return them as a string. So that's what's happening here. And now the value itself that's saved in the drop down list over here, this one, this is int, so that's why int value. Okay, now here we need to return, once again we are returning this drop down menu. So drop down menu, and we are returning inside thing, that is string. Now it takes few parameters. Let's see if we, well, there's other issues that we'll take care of them later, but don't worry for now. I think here, this is the thing, it's being cranky. We need to convert it to list, and then the error should be gone, I guess. Yes. Okay, now here we should have semicolon, and now here it takes some items. Okay, now it says child icon is required. So let's go ahead and write here child, and it takes a widget. Of course, if you see the type, so it's a widget. Okay, widget type, so we can pass any widget, that's what it means. Okay, now over here we are getting a value over here. So this is our int list, right? So we're getting them in int format, value dot to string, because this is text widget. Text widget always takes string objects, we know that. And it has another item, I think we can pass it, which is value. So value dot to string. Okay, perfect, we should be good to go. Now what's happening here, let me tell you. So this is our item list, remind list, and we are looping through it, and as we loop through it, user clicks on them, we'll be able to see. So that's why we are looping through it. But as we loop through it, we must return, and only then user can see. That's why we have return function. Okay, and but as we are returning drop down item, and that has a string. So our return type has to be this one. Okay, or the object we return, this is this one. Okay, and once again at the end, when users see, they see it as a string, so drop down menu string. You can understand it like this. So whatever you return, the return object should be also the type. So that's pretty much every function works if a function returns something. So here we are returning drop down item but as a string, so we need to do the same thing over here. Okay, all right, now this one itself is a integer, so we are getting the values from there. Okay, all right, so now the error is gone. Well, now what we could do, we could go ahead and, okay, here you are. So now this is what we have, and once we click on this, nothing happens though so far, but that's okay. Now few other things which is not good, like there is this line here. Okay, so we need to take care of this line. So how do you do that? There is a property which is called underline. Okay, if you come over here and you'll find hopefully underline, and it takes a widget. So we can pass a container widget and say height is 0, so thus it would be gone. Okay, that's gone. Now there is another property that we can play around, so that's called onChange. Okay, this one, and it takes a string object, I guess. So whatever it is, so let's pass as a new value, and we'll do set state. Okay, and selected value, selected remind equal int parse new value. Okay, all right, let's see, we have an error here. The type argument function cannot be assigned to a void. Okay, all right, and let's see if it's help us. Okay, now let's go ahead and run it. We are over here. Now let's click on this. So yes, it's working, it's showing up. Yes, it's working, and you can select the time. It could be 20, it could be 10. So what onChange does is that once you click on this, definitely it shows up, and then whatever the value you select, it saves over here. But remember that items returning drop down menu item as a string, but this one only takes integer, so that's why we are parsing it to integer. Okay, so that's the idea. And once we do that, we save it there, and once we save it, so we reflect it over here immediately. Okay, so that's how it works. So far this section is working, and now we'll be working on this section. Okay, now this section should be pretty much the earlier section. First we need to go ahead and declare over here right. Okay, perfect. So we already worked on this thing, and all we could do, we could copy paste this one. Okay, and now over here, instead of select remind, this one we could do repeat, and here we don't need any of this thing, we just can keep that one, and as well as selected repeat, it should work. Okay, and over here things also need to be changed. Okay, so repeat, and now over here whatever the value is there, new value, we can directly pass it down because it's already in string format. Hopefully it makes sense. Okay, perfect. So now with this, I think we are pretty good to go, but now the value is already in text format, so we don't need to transfer it. So this is the same over here. It's value, but what we could do, we could do a simple text style. Checker, but based on your version you might not need this, so let's save it. Look at our option. Well, to work out on this section, first we have to understand the layout. Definitely this is a row layout, and as you know, the first section also has this column layout. Okay, so we'll put them in column. So let's go ahead and get started. What we could do, we'll come over here, and now here first we'll assign a row over here. Okay, and we'll declare our children. Okay, we are fine. And now this one we'll do it in a separate function. Okay, or actually we could do it here, doesn't matter though. So we'll do it here like this, column, and now it'll have children. And the children, the first one definitely is a text, right? So that's what we need. So do color, and now we'll assign style here, style. So title style, like this is the one we have in our theme file, remember? Okay, so we did these things previously. So come over here. Okay, and now let's save it. Look at our monitor. Yeah, it's there. Okay, perfect. And the next thing we want showing this color. Okay, now the color here, as you see, they are on one line, horizontal line. So they're laid out horizontally. Now in Flutter there is a widget which is called wrap, W-R-A-P, wrap. So we can use that widget wrap. Why? Because wrap widget helps you put things in horizontal line. Okay, so that's the default setup, so that's what we can do. So the layout should be horizontally. Okay, now it takes children, so we'll go ahead and do it. And now here children would be saved in a list. Okay, because we want to generate this color palette or colors dynamically. So that's why first children would be in a list rather than hard coding them one by one. So we would generate them dynamically. Okay, so we do list, and right here widget. Now because each of them is a widget, okay, they're color widget. Okay, so that's why this is a list of widgets. Okay, and we'll generate them. So we'll call .generate. So this is a function that shipped out of the box from a list. This list, what is this? This list iterator, from this list. Okay, so it is shipped out from there directly. So that's what we are going to use. Now generate, as you see, it takes a few parameters, length and a function. Okay, and global. But for us, first two is enough. So we want to generate 3 widgets. So we write here 3. And now it takes a function if you hover over on it. Okay, so but of course the function is anonymous, which means that we don't need to define the name. It takes parameter. Okay, so once again, if you come over here, it takes int parameter. So that's what we are supplying here, and now we return. Okay, now return what? We need the semicolon. Okay, so we can return here, say, circle elevator itself takes a few parameters. The first one is radius, so we'll put here, say, radius 14, and it also takes background color. So background color would say, first just let's see the demo. So background color dot gray. Okay, so now let's go ahead and save it and see the end result. Well, so these are the 3 colors, these 3 widgets, color widgets we generated dynamically. Okay, so it's pretty simple. First use wrap, and then list.generate and supply function with the number of time you want to run it. Okay, Now here's the problem. So they're too close to each other. So we can assign some padding on it. So we'll use the padding widget. And now let's save it. But it's too much on the left and right because it's in every direction. We don't want like that. We just want in one direction and the right. So we'll do 8.0. That's much better. Okay. And now here we want to start from the left side. So here we can assign cross-axis alignment property. Cross-axis alignment dot start. Okay, perfect. Okay, now this is too close to the top field, so we can assign sized box here. So we do say height 18. So let's save it. Perfect. Okay, now here this two also too close, so here we can also assign sized box. Okay, and here we do height say 8.0. Okay, now here comes the next part, how to generate color dynamically. Okay, because we need these three colors as we saw from this design. So how do we generate these three colors? Now here, do remember that we have this index, right? So using this index we can change the this color. So we can use the index. So in Flutter we know that we have iterary operator. So first we'll check index equal 0. If it's 0, then say we would use primary color. We already have primary color defined. Otherwise, say we would use the pinkish color or pink color, like it's also defined in our theme over here. So now let's go ahead and save it. Perfect. So now the first color is okay, but the second two are repeating. We don't want the second two. So first we are just checking on if it's 0 or not. If it's not 0, then rest is the same color. That's what is happening here. So we are done with 0. So when it comes to this one over here, we can actually do one more check. We can check if index equal 1, then we do pink. So we show this pink color. Otherwise we show the yellow color because we also have another color declared in our theme. Okay, now let's go ahead and save it. Yes, perfect. So now we have these three colors and we did that using the checking on the index. Hopefully it makes sense. All right, so now that is so far so good. Well, another thing is that we want to be able to click on the color, tap on the color, right? I mean, we want to select the color. So how to do that? It's pretty simple. So now here we have this padding widget, right? So we want to be able to click on them. So for that one, we can wrap it around gesture widget. So let's go ahead and do it. So do gesture detector, right? And over here it takes onTap function. So within onTap function we can access the index and save it. Okay, and based on that index we can change the color over here. Okay, all right, sorry, I mean the tick color like that. Okay, so now first go ahead and declare a variable so that we can keep the track of the index, which one has been clicked. So to do that, come at the top and over here let's declare a variable. We'll say int selected color. Selected color, the first index is 0. This is the default index. So now once we select it, we'll save it. Okay, so the selected color equal index. So whatever the index you click on, here is the index, so it would be saved on this one. All right, okay, now of course we need to show this tick mark. Okay, now tick mark could be child of this circle avatar. So what we'll do, we'll just go ahead and create a child over here. So child, and that should be an icon, so we could do icons dot done, and we can use colors dot white, and we can also use the size here. So size equals 16. So now let's go ahead and save it and check our result. Now, of course, the size is there everywhere. I mean, sorry, the done icon. We don't want the done icon to be everywhere. So we can, again, use this index, and based on that index, we can check which one has been clicked, and on the one has been clicked, on that, we just put this icon. Otherwise, we don't put anything. So here, let's go ahead and check it. Now, this one. Okay, so with this here, first we see, so selected color equal index color. So that means wherever you click, that selected color and index, if they match, we'll show this icon. Otherwise, we don't want to show anything, so we'll have an empty container, colorless container. Okay, hopefully it should make sense. Now let's go ahead and click on this. Now it doesn't work because we need to here use set state to trigger the redraw. So now let's save it. Now let's click on this. Yes, perfect. Now it's working. Okay, so we are able to select colors. Of course, you can also put a log to see the index print. So index 0, index 2, index 1. Perfect. So everything is working. So now here we are done with this section. I mean this color section. Now you saw we put it in this inside our main section, but we can put it as a separate function. So I'll just copy and cut this one, and here I'll create a new function. I'll call it color palette. Okay. All right. Now here we want to return this one. Okay. And as we returned, we just need to do one thing, call it from here. So it's say color palette. I think it's a 1p or 2p. I'm sorry about that, not sure. Anyway, so done with that one. But now we also need to show this one, and we already have done the heavy work, heavy lifting before. So remember, we created button early, so we can just call my button, this one. It takes a label. Our label is create task, and now for now we can pass empty ontap function. Okay. All right, now let's go ahead and save it, see the result. So everything is working. So let's go ahead and give it a try. So far everything is good. So next we'll see how to validate our form and submit it to the database. Definitely, that's for that reason we need to install SQL package. So we'll do it in next part. Well, the first thing we want to do, we want to validate our data. Once you type in and click this button, create task. Before creating task, you want to validate them. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a method over here, and we'll call it say validate method, validate text or data, like that. Okay, all right, now over here we'll do validation. So now let's go up at the top, and here I already defined this two variables. So text editor for text editing controller, and for node controller, text editing controller. So these are the two controllers we need once you type in data over here and want to save the data for later use. So if you didn't do it, just go ahead and declare two variables like this. Okay, perfect. Now come over here. So the only validation we need to do here in this case, that whether they are empty or not, and these are all auto-filled. Okay, so you have to choose any one of them, as well as there is also default value. Okay, so it doesn't really matter. So we first want to check quickly that whether these fields are empty or not. Okay, so we'll use the data from the text controller. Do remember, once you type in data here, they're automatically saved in text controller. So now let's go ahead and check on the text controller. We will do if statement, if not controller, if title controller, and we want to get the text part is not empty, and not controller dot text dot is not empty. So those both fields are not empty, then it means that data is there. In that case, first we'll submit data add to database. All right, but that's the method we need to create, and we'll do it later. And once we submit the data to database, we can go back to home page to say the data. Then we can simply do get.back. So with this, we'll go back to the previous page once the data submission is done. Okay, all right. So if now they're empty, it means that we can't submit the data, so we'll fall back to a new condition, else if. Okay, so now we'll quickly check once again over here, text title controller, text now is empty. So if data is empty, so if one of them is empty, so that's why we have OR operator here. We do next we do not controller is text is empty. So if one of them is empty, we'll send a message to our user. So we will use get.snackbar to send a message from the bottom. So let's go ahead and type in required. Now here all fields are required. Okay, like this. All right, but we can style it further. So let's go ahead and do some styling. So snack position, so snack position dot bottom. So we want it to pop up from the bottom, and we can also set up the background color. We do colors dot red, or like we have pink color right now, background color. Okay, colors dot white. Actually we want white background. And now let's see, I think we need to come over here, and we can also show an icon over here. So icons dot say for example warning. So this is the icon we can show. And what else? So now let's save it and click on this. So let's see. Oh, of course we are not calling this one. We need to call this validate method. So we'll call it from here. Right now we are passing null, so we can just call it from here. So click on this, and it's not responding. That's because I'm missing a bracket here. And we also need to set our controller over here. We should really pass it because it's over there in the file, but we are not passing it. So let's pass it. We'll just simply write controller, and we'll do title controller, and over here we'll do controller, and we'll do not controller. Okay, yes. Now let's save it. Okay, now let's go ahead, save it, and of course you see things, right? Okay, so now here the problem is the background color is white. So now let's go ahead, save it, and run it one more time. So required, all fields are required. Right, so now here's the thing. So let's try it. So if we have all this data available, that it should go back to the home page, right? So doing test, and I think these are all okay, fine. Now yes, so all the data are available. Now it came back to the home page. Now home page does have a little bit background problem, which doesn't match with the color palette of the app bar. We can fix it easily. So over here for scaffold, we can pass a background color based on our context theme. Okay, so we do background color. Now let's save it. Yes, now they look much similar, right? Yes, and it's working as well. Yes, everything is perfect. Now let's do one more test. Okay, yes, this came back, and over here it's pretty much same. So for now we are done with this validation. Now we'll see how to submit data to our database. Well, to submit data to database, first we need to come to this file and install this Sqflite library for storing data locally in the database. Okay, make sure that you install the latest version, and once that is done, we'll come over here, and over here in the lib folder, what we'll do, we'll create a new directory and we'll call it models. Okay, now over here we'll create a new model. So model name is task.dart, because we want to save data in the database and retrieve data in the database, but we need to tell the database like how the data is coming and their format. Okay, and that's why we need this model. Okay, model tells you how to get data and how to save data to database. Okay, and also the format. That's what it does. Okay, now I already have the model, so I'll just copy paste it because this tutorial has been too long. So I don't want to really keep typing. So here some of the things that we need to take care of these things. So either it's cannot be null, or we could do like this. Say for example, now the error should be gone. So just tell that compiler that they could be null. Well, there are many different ways to deal with this thing, so it doesn't matter in our case because our app is still very simple, but you get the idea. So now these are the fields, they are related to the fields over here. Of course, the ID is not the one over here. ID would be in the ID in database when we create each record. So that's the ID, and the title, note, date, start time, end time, color. So these are all these fields over here, but only one field is not here, which is completed, which we will do manually later because we are doing a to-do app. So at the to-do app, so the task has been completed or not, we can mark it later. So that's why we have. And now later on, so these are the fields that our model will have, and the model will get data from this file over here. So then we'll initialize the data. Okay, so they're the same name, and then when we submit the data to database, so we have to convert the data to JSON format. Okay, so that's what it is doing over here. All right, and do remember that this field's name, they would be the same as the field in our database column, which we'll do later. Now once again, to tell you what is JSON format is like key value pair, like that, so you can understand. So this would be the key and value would be coming from our file over here. Okay, so that's the JSON format. So before we submit data to database, we need to give the data in JSON format to the database, and they do the rest of the handling. We don't need to worry about that one. Okay, all right, so now our model is ready. Well, another thing is that now here we also have from JSON. So when you retrieve data from database, we need this kind of format. So here we'll have the value. So we'll save the value in this kind of field, okay, from database, which would be able to access later in our app. All right. Now the next thing we need to do, we need to create another file. First we'll create a directory, and we'll call it controllers, because controllers would help us to process data, and after processing data we'll submit the data to database. So controller does the processing. At the same time, controller sits between model and your UI. So here is our UI. Do remember UI has this elements or files. Okay, so what you see on the page, that's called UI. So when you click the button submit the data, it goes to controller, and controllers sends the data to model, and actually model also has to do with the database. They are connected. Anyway, so now here we'll create a new file, and we'll call it taskcontroller.dart. okay, over here. So over here we'll do some complex operation, but for now it won't be that complex. Okay, very simple though. Now we'll here create a new class, and we'll call it task controller, and which extends GetX controller. Once again, I'm using GetX because it's much easier to deal with the data using GetX package, and dealing with database and processing data could be complex operation, but GetX would help you to overcome those problems. It makes things very simple. So but we need to override here a default method that comes from GetX. It's called void on ready. Okay, and it is a method called super.onReady. Okay, now this gets called during the initialization. Okay, all right, so that's our controller. Okay, now the controller would receive data from our UI. UI is this one over here. Do remember that earlier we said that once we validate the data and validation passed, then we'll send the data to database. Of course, first we'll send the data to the controller. So this is the place from where we send the data to the controller. Okay, so we need to define a new method here. It's the add task to DB. All right, like that. So over here, first we'll submit the data to the controller. So let's go ahead and create this method. So we'll call it add task to DB. Well, this is the task we want to add to the database. I already typed in because we want to save some time. Let's go ahead and import the library. Now over here, actually we are passing the data to our model. Do remember that this is our model. So this is the constructor. So this field over here, the same as the field over here. Okay, so we are passing the data for note, so which is this one. We are passing the data for title, this one. So for each field, do remember that earlier we learned that we already declared these variables, so they save data. So all these data are saved in these variables, and later down the path we send them to the controller using this model. And these fields are same as the field name in our model. Once again, they have to be same, otherwise you'll get an error. Okay, so now here, this one, we want to send this to the model, but now here definitely we can't send it like this. We have to call a method. Okay, we can't really call the constructor directly. Okay, so we have to send it to somewhere, like say for example, now I create a value over here, variable, which is a task. Okay, so it would go to task, and where is this task, where this task will go? Actually we can wrap it around a method. Okay, but that method has to be declared over here in our task controller. So let's go ahead and declare a method in task controller. So over here we'll call a method, and the type is future void, and we'll call it add task, and it will take object of task. Okay, and then we'll return something, and from here actually we'll insert data to database. Now as you see, let's import the library, and here insert this question mark. Okay, well for now we do return null, we are not returning anything. But now here's one thing. So this is the method we can call from our UI over here. Do remember this is a controller, and as we call, we pass the task model data as a task object. Okay, so that makes it simple. So now here all of these things would put inside a variable, put inside a method which is called task method. Okay, so now here, before we can access this method over here, we need to initialize this method. Okay, so let's go ahead, sorry, we need to initialize this constructor. So let's go ahead and initialize this. So before we go ahead and pass this data to controller, first we need to initialize this controller. Okay, so we'll initialize it at the top over here. Okay, so we'll initialize it over here. So you do final task controller, and we'll call it task controller, and then we'll call get.put task controller. Okay, like this. So once you use get.put and with input you can call a controller, the controller available in your project or the controller you want to initialize, and it would call that controller and initialize, and that initialized value would be saved in this variable. Okay, now let's go down. Now over here, so we can call task dot. Now here we already have a method. What is our method? Let's see. Our method is add task, this one. We can call this one, okay? But now we already saw that it takes an object, so we can just pass our object around here, the object we created early. All right, now here we need to put semicolon, and with this actually we are pretty much done, but of course we are not passing anything to database yet. Okay, yeah, so now we need to create a database file where we can initialize our database. Let's see, we have an error, looks like. Okay, well, this is the error, but we'll take care of that later. So first go ahead and create another folder, sorry, and we'll call it db database, and here we'll create a file and we'll call it db-helper.dart. okay, now over here we will initialize our database, so we'll call the class name db-helper. okay, and we'll initialize the database over here, database, and the database is not, I mean, we are going to create one, but we don't have one yet. But whatever we create, we'll save it in this one, and the type would be database. That's the meaning. All right, and then we do static final int version. So it requires you provide a version, so you need to do that, and static final string, also your database name. Okay, so table name is your database name, and our database name is a task. Anything you want you can call it. Now here we need to create an init method. Okay, so we are going to do that. So here actually we are going to initialize our database. Okay, I already wrote the method over here. So first we need to call this method from somewhere. Once we call that, it will check if the db is not null. If it's not null, that means it already been initialized, then we'll return. It's not been initialized, so we'll go ahead and call this function, and we'll provide our database name over here. Okay, yeah, so this is the database table we want to create. So it will give us a path in the memory of Flutter, and then so I think at the same time it will initialize the database. Then we can open the database, and once we open the database, we can use this onCreate callback function. So what it will do, it will create a table for us. So with this, a database is created, and with this function, a table is created in the database. Okay, and of course, if you're familiar with SQL statement, you know that create table means create a table for me. And here the table name is this one, but our database name is this one. Do remember, they're the same name though, it doesn't matter, you can have a different name. Now here you need to define each column and their property at the type they take. So definitely we'll have ID in the database, and string title. So the title is string type, note is a text type because you can type a lot. So text almost take unlimited number of text, and our date. So these are all string type. So these are other fields that we are saving them as either string or integer. Okay, so it makes sense. Now is completed also integer over here. Now if things go wrong, we'll just return here error, that will print the error on the monitor, okay, or on the screen. All right, so now this is about the init method. Now init method we need to call from our main method. Okay, so main method over here, So over here, when the app initialized, we need to call it from there. So we'll call await, and we'll call, let's see, db helper.init. Okay, yeah. So what's our file name? The class name is db helper over here, and the method name is init method. So they should be called when our get storage initialized, so at the same time, okay, before we actually run our app. Anyway, so now over here, so with this init method, but this is only be called first time we install the app. At that time it will initialize this database and table. Okay, now next, okay, now we'll create an insert method. Okay, so we'll call static future int, and we'll call it. So here I created this init method, but it might throw some error. So in that case, here you need to put this question mark, and as well as import the library. And over here, let's see, and at first you need to check the database is null or not. Okay, and at the same time, if it's not null, whatever is here, we'll use that. Otherwise we can use a random number, okay, anything. And let's see what's happening here. It's also asking you to put a null checker. Okay, anyway, so this is the method we want to call. We want to call from where? We want to call from over here. Okay, do remember, you call add task. Where do you call it from? You call it from here, add task. So it gets all the data from here, and then it sends to this method, right? Add task. Add task is over here. Now from here, actually we can call this insert method. Okay, so it's calling it would be pretty easy. So all we would do would call db helper, this method, and this class name, and then we'll call insert. Okay, and we just need to pass this task object over here. All right, and then we should be good to go. Now another few things though, like this inserting or retrieving data could be slow process, so you need to await. Okay, so otherwise you might get error, or even you'd see you can't insert it. Even if you insert, you don't get back anything. All right, I mean, you don't get back any result from database. All right, so now let's see. So over here we are good with this, and now I think we also need to use await here, and async modifier. Yes, and let's see, and come over here, db helper. So the type is, I guess it should be int. Okay, why it's int? Let me explain to you. If you come to db helper over here, now this is the method, right? This is the actual method in our package, and it returns int. Okay, and as you can see, it takes this kind of value over here. All right, the table name and the value. So that's what we are doing. This is the table name and value. But anyway, so this method returns a future. So if a return method returns future, for that one we need to use await and async. And at the same time, to make sure that app doesn't crash, you can also use a future keyword, the method that calls this kind of method. Okay, like this method is calling this method. Okay, so that's what we are doing here. So eventually this returns int. Okay, so that's why here, over here, so it returns int, so we'll get int result from here. So we need to define the return type as int. Okay, now anyway, so we should be good to go. And another thing we could do, we can now, if you see that what it returns the ID of the last inserted row. So if it can insert successfully, then it will return the ID of that row. So it's returning here, we are grabbing it here as well, and the returned ID actually we can grab over here. So we can declare a variable var, say int value. Okay, we'll save the value over here just to print out that what's ID is being inserted. So we can print over here So we'd say my ID is, with the value, okay, and with this we'd be able to print. All right, now hopefully everything should be good. Now we'll stop the app, stop all, okay, and restart it. Okay, well, now here we have this message creating a new one, and let's see. So hopefully it created, okay, because it printed this log. Okay, so now we can go ahead and create a over here a form. So we'd say Flutter learn Flutter, and I will keep this for now default, doesn't matter, we just want to test it. So now let's go ahead and now before we go ahead and create this task button, before we go ahead and click on this task button, actually we can print, oh well, yes, we'll get the log over here. So we can go ahead and create the task. All right, now it returned ID 1. That means there was one ID created successfully. Okay, it means that one row has been created in the database. Now let's create one more, and we'll see, say programming, call it programming, learn programming, and this time maybe we can also do a bit of this operation, and say 57, okay, say minutes early. So now let's see, this time we should get this page, my ID should be 2, right? Let's go ahead and check it. Yes, my ID is 2. So that means that we are successfully able to insert the data in the database. Okay, next we'll see how to retrieve the data in the database and show them over here. Okay.